All right. Hi, everyone. Thanks, everybody, for joining the session tonight. And hi to everybody online who's watching this recording in the future. My name is Ali Greenslade. I'm the Climate Engagement Coordinator and Policy Analyst here at the Métis Nation of Alberta. The Environment and Climate Change Speaker Spotlight is an initiative we have which invites Métis community members as well as industry professionals to share skills and knowledge with the goal of sharing information on climate action and environmental stewardship. So tonight we're really excited to have Isabel Wood from Total Prepare to talk about emergency preparedness, natural disasters and events here in Alberta. We'll get to her in a moment. Just as we have a large group today, I'll invite people, if you want to introduce yourself or say hello in the chat, please feel free to do that. And then moving on, if you have any questions, please add them into the Q&A section. We'll have somebody moderating that. So just a brief overview of today. We have a prayer that has been pre-recorded by Elder Norma Spicer, which I'll share in just a moment. Then I'm going to do a really quick kind of update on some of the work our department's doing, the Environment and Climate Change Department here at the Métis Nation of Alberta. And then I will pass it over to Kimberly, who's going to give an update on the MNA's Emergency Preparedness Program. I'm sure some of the folks here have applied for the kits, so we'll give an update on that. And then we'll pass it over to Isabel. So one other thing I just wanted to mention, you may have seen in the advertisement for the session today that you could have a chance to win one of the emergency preparedness kits for being here. So just at the end of the session, we're going to do it a little bit differently. So if you've attended one of these before, we usually have a follow-up survey where you can win like a gift card or something. But we wanted to prioritize the people that were able to join tonight. So right after the session, a link will pop up that'll prompt you to enter your information if you would like to enter to win one of the kits. And it's kind of a one-time thing. So please don't exit your browser right away. That'll pop up and you can fill that out and that'll enter you for a chance to win. And just a note, if you have been selected to get a kit, we'll just allow one kit from either thing. So you can't win twice, but yeah, keep an eye out for that at the end of the session. And just to be eligible as well, you have to be over 18 and an MNA citizen. So I'm now going to share the prayer recorded by Elder Norma Spicer, and she's tailored her prayer to fit the content of the engagement today, so we can begin in a good way.
Please join me in prayer. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. Heavenly Father, we are grateful to the Métis Nation and their environment and climate change staff for providing us information and resources to help us be mindful of the ways to prepare for natural disasters such as flooding, storms, fires, and earthquakes. We are grateful that these speaker series strive to increase the preparedness mindsets among all our people so that they can be better equipped in advance to deal with catastrophic events. Help us to heed the warnings and directions given by emergency response officials. Give us the wisdom to be ready, that we will be watchful but not fearful. Merciful Lord, if disaster strikes, help us to respond with generosity and prayer, in assistance, in aid, to the best of our abilities. Make us leaders in these efforts. Keep our hearts focused on the needs of those affected, and let us look beyond ourselves to help others in the midst of crisis and rebuilding after a disaster. Grant calmness and control of thoughts to those who are facing uncertainty and anxiety, and let their hearts stand fast, believing in you, for you are with us wherever we are. We place our trust in you, now and forever. Amen. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost.
Thank you again to Elder Norma for that prayer. I'm now just going to take a moment while I have you all here to give you a quick update. Our environment and climate change team does a ton of different stuff in terms of environmental monitoring, conservation, mitigation work. You may have even seen us out in real life going across the province the last month, where we did a bunch of different ski community engagements. And one thing I just want to highlight today is one of the projects that came out of community engagement work, which is our fish health monitoring program. So if you're not familiar, this is an opportunity for citizens and community members, if you're out fishing, to send us information about how your fishing experience was, anything you notice about fish health. You can send in pictures, palatability reports. And the winter season is wrapping up. Only a couple more weeks to submit forms for that, and then it'll be open again for the summer. Annalena, if you could send a link to that in the chat, if anybody's interested, that'd be great. The fishing team also just made a really great video that's online if anybody had a chance to see that as well. And if you submit a fish form, you can win prizes. So win-win-win. Another thing I just wanted to highlight is a resource that we developed a couple years ago now, but it's kind of in line with today's session. So natural disasters and emergency situations can obviously be inherently quite stressful. And this session is intended to provide resources and information to better prepare folks. And we know with climate change projections in Alberta, the instances of extreme weather and impacts is likely to go up, and that this can be kind of a stressful thing to talk about. So I just wanted to thank everybody for joining tonight and point out that within these resources developed based on community knowledge, that to remind people of, there are inherent risks, but also resilience within the Métis community. So with that, I'll stop talking. I just want to say thank you again to everybody joining tonight. At this point, I will pass it over to our environment manager, Kimberly Mozicki, who's going to give an update on our emergency preparedness program.
Good evening, everyone. So tonight stems from a collaboration that the MNA has with Total Prepare. So not only is our emergency preparedness program this speaker spotlight to inform citizens on the risks that they face with regards to emergencies, and to provide ways and methods that you can help prepare yourself, including maybe how you could build your own kit. But our relationship with Total Prepare also includes that we've ordered 500 72-hour emergency preparedness kits for families of 6. So these kits will provide food, water, basic shelter, and other materials that a family would need to say shelter in place or evacuate in the event of an emergency, and it would cover you for 72 hours until emergency response is available. Sorry. So hopefully I can answer a few of the questions that have already popped up regarding the kit. So we did order 500 kits from Total Prepare, and 495 of them we are giving out through an open Google Doc that we had, where citizens were asked throughout the month of February to sign up to express their interest in receiving a kit, while we were prioritizing people that live in rural communities who are most at risk in the event of emergency due to the lack of immediate emergency resources, and those that have other vulnerabilities, such as, say, living with small children, or elderly or disabled members of their family in their household, all that make things like emergency evacuation a little bit more difficult. So throughout the month of February, we were accepting applications, and we did receive over 1,600 applications, and our staff have gone through and assessed each application, looking at both the community that people lived in. So are they living completely remotely, or in kind of a smaller bedroom community of a bigger city, or are they living in a city with emergency resources? And so we kind of rated the different communities that people live in. And then we also looked at people's statement of vulnerability that they were asked to include in their application for a kit, which listed things like the vulnerabilities they have. Maybe they live in a floodplain, or they live in a community that's faced forest fire in the past. And so we looked at all of these together, prioritizing those that live in rural communities to determine who will be receiving a kit. And so 495 kits are going out that way. The other 5 kits we have held back and will be given to people that attend this session. So when you exit this session, you will be asked immediately to fill out a form, and that will be your entry into the kit. If you have heard that you are receiving a kit, no need to enter, because we won't be giving anyone 2 kits, so that we can make sure we target the most amount of citizens. And I know some people have already heard that they are receiving a kit. I saw Angela mention in the chat that she's getting one. We are not done contacting everyone that is receiving a kit. We do have to contact each person individually. So if you haven't heard from us and you did apply for a kit, there is a chance that we just haven't got around to contacting you. So do keep an eye out on your email. We're going to attempt to contact everyone a minimum of 3 times to make sure everyone has a chance to like check their email and let us know. We will be confirming addresses because of the size and the nature of the kits. We are somewhat limited on shipping. So if you are requesting a kit, that's just something to be aware of, that we can't, even though we're targeting rural addresses, it's actually difficult sometimes to ship to rural addresses. We are working with citizens to find a way to make sure that they get the kit. And we also, like, our goal is to prepare all citizens across the M&A for emergencies. And unfortunately, due to funding restraints and a lack of funding federally and provincially available for Indigenous communities and emergency situations, we can't give a kit to every single citizen as much as we would love to be able to give a kit to everyone. So hopefully this speaker spotlight will provide people that aren't receiving a kit with like the knowledge that they might need to build a kit on their own for their own family. So there will be some resources there, and this is we're recording this talk, so will be available to everyone in the future. If you ever wanted to come back and get some tips on how to build your own kit, or if you have family or friends that can't make it tonight, you can share this with them so that everyone will have the resources so that they can be prepared in the event of an emergency. And thank you everyone that applied for the kits and for coming tonight. And I will pass it back to Allie.
Thanks, Kimberly, and thanks for sharing all that information. Yeah, I will pass it over to Isabel, who has prepared a really great presentation for us today, and share more information about what emergency situations we might experience in the future here in Alberta. So I'll pass it over to you, Isabel.
Thanks, Allie. Hi, everybody. I am going to just share with you as we get started. Again, my name is Isabel Wood, and I work for Total Prepare, and we're located in Victoria, British Columbia, and we help build resilient communities through education and preparedness supplies. I'd like to acknowledge that today's presentation is being presented on the unceded traditional territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations, and welcome the Métis Nation of Alberta and all Métis citizens who live across the 6 regions who are attending this session or viewing the recording. Today, we'll go over the steps of emergency preparedness, knowing the risks, making a plan, and exploring the contents of an emergency kit. Over the past few years, we have learned that there's wisdom in preparing. Many people wait for something to happen before deciding it's time to prepare. Communication is key when it comes to preparing for an emergency. Discussing emergency plans, meeting places, contacts, and backup plans will help to mentally brace everyone for the unthinkable. Ensuring everyone is on the same page can minimize confusion during an emergency and make reuniting easier if you get separated. Write down your plan and make sure everyone has a copy for their backpack, purse, and have one in your vehicle and in your emergency kits. Preparation is a great opportunity to set things in order and get ready. I like to think of emergency kits as a form of physical insurance. If something goes wrong, you have the equipment and strategies in place to support you and your loved ones, and it provides some peace of mind. Most common among the emergencies experienced in Alberta are winter storms, which can bring with them extended power outages, extreme cold temperatures, and blizzards. Historically high temperatures in the summer bring the risk of wildfires and heat waves. Tornadoes, flooding, windstorms, and hailstorms are other types of emergencies that can put lives at risk. Although not as common in Alberta, earthquakes are also life-altering emergencies to be prepared for. The first and most important step of emergency preparedness is understanding the risks and knowing what happens in the event of each emergency. Alberta emergency alerts are issued by communities where a disaster or emergency is occurring. By signing up to receive this information directly, you will be better informed about potential risks to your health, safety, or community. Sign up for Alert Site Alberta by visiting www.emergencyalert.alberta.ca. Blizzards, ice storms, high winds, and blowing snow can develop quickly and threaten life and property. Alberta experiences extreme cold temperatures during the winter, where temperatures can reach as low as -40. Temperatures this low are life-threatening, putting people and animals at risk. A blizzard warning is issued when falling or blowing snow reaches speeds of at least 40 kilometers an hour and is expected to last 4 hours or longer. Visibility during this time reduced to 400 meters or less. Freezing rain creates a buildup of clear ice on surfaces, and an ice storm occurs when large amounts of freezing rain continue for several hours. They can also include wind, ice fog, and cold temperatures. Freezing rain can cause damage by creating a heavy weight load wherever the ice forms, and this can cause downed trees, damaged power lines, and severe road conditions. Keep in mind that ice from freezing rain can build up on any surface, making roads, sidewalks, and pathways dangerous for falls and slips. The things that you can do: avoid driving and wait several hours after the storm ends before going anywhere. If you have to drive, check Alberta 511 for current road conditions. Travel during daytime hours, make sure you have a well-stocked vehicle emergency kit, and use the buddy system so someone knows where you're going and when to expect you. If possible, avoid going outdoors, but if you must go out, make sure you are dressed for the weather. If you live in a rural area, string guidelines between your house and any other buildings that you might need to get to during the storm. If you're stuck in your vehicle, remain calm, stay inside, and call for help. Occasionally run the engine to stay warm, but beware of exhaust fumes and make sure the exhaust pipe is not blocked. Allow fresh air in by opening windows slightly on sheltered side away from the wind for short periods of time. When extreme cold warnings are issued, protect yourself and your loved ones. Being exposed even for short periods in these conditions can be dangerous. Stay indoors when possible. If you must travel by car, know your route ahead of time and make sure that you have a well-stocked emergency kit in your vehicle. Dress in warm, windproof layers. Watch for signs of frostbite, which can occur in less than 10 minutes in extreme cold. When working outside, do not overexert yourself. Sweating can lead to hypothermia, which can be fatal. Make sure your pets have warm shelter. Have extra blankets and warm clothes on hand. Use a wood burning or gas fireplace if you have one. Generators, camp stoves, or barbecues should never be used indoors. Gas stoves and ovens are not a safe source of heat due to possible carbon monoxide poisoning. Central Alberta experiences an average of about 56 hail days per year, the most severe storms occurring in July and August. Hail occurs mostly from late afternoon or evening thunderstorms. A severe hailstorm may last for several hours, however, are typically less than 5 minutes, and the hail is often accompanied by heavy rain. Large hailstones, walnut-sized, damage crops, buildings, and automobiles. Giant hailstones, golf ball size or larger, falling at high speeds, have as much energy as a bullet and can injure animals and people. Do you know why hailstones happen? Updrafts in thunderclouds will sometimes carry raindrops or snow pellets upwards to where it's so cold that the raindrops freeze and combine into lumps of ice. When they get too heavy to be supported by the wind any longer, they plummet to the earth at speeds of sometimes more than 100 kilometers per hour. Rain and snow can be dangerous in large quantities, but hail can cause injury just from one hailstone striking you. If the weather is threatening, find shelter in a solid building as quickly as possible. Once inside, it's best to stay away from windows or any glass, as the hail may break through and shatter it. If you're in a vehicle, pull over quickly and shield yourself from possible shattering glass. If there is no shelter in sight, it's best to crouch down, face away from the wind, and cover your head and neck as best as you can. Be on the lookout for heavy flooding, as hail and rain combined can quickly plug up storm drains. If the hailstorm is also a thunderstorm, be aware of how far away the lightning is and avoid tall or metal objects as much as possible. Short or long-term loss of electric power can affect a single property, an entire building, or an entire community. Many hazards, such as high winds, falling trees, freezing rain, wildfires, and flooding, can damage power lines, causing a power outage. Before an outage, having adequate light and a way to prepare your stored food can help to turn a difficult situation into an adventure rather than a highly stressful one. A solar lantern or flashlight will provide you and your family with light in an emergency. Be sure to have an extra set of batteries stored in a Ziploc bag if you're using a battery-powered flashlight. With no power, it's impossible to stay connected to local radio stations that broadcast updates on storm conditions, the weather outlook, reports on when crews are expected to restore power, and other emergency service announcements. So many of us rely solely on cell phones for communication. No power also means no way of recharging those phones that are so vital to us keeping in touch with our family and contacting emergency help if it's needed. Ensure that you have a power bank fully charged or a smartphone charging weather radio. These radios are solar, battery, or hand turbine powered, AMF, AM, FM, and NOAA weather radios, and are equipped with the USB smartphone charger. And most are equipped with an alert function. When the radio is on, it will automatically broadcast local emergency weather alerts. Find out where in your community information will be posted with updates during an emergency, and make sure your emergency kit is well stocked. Store water for your family, including pets, for drinking, cooking, and hygiene. Have emergency food and a safe way to prepare that food. Have a backup exit plan if you rely on an elevator. Install a carbon monoxide detector with backup battery power. Have backup power in place for any critical medical equipment. If you have a vehicle, keep the tank full in case gas stations lose power or close down. Outages can leave you without heat, water, lights, air conditioning, information services, and vital communication sources. Services such as grocery stores, pharmacies, gas stations, banks, and ATMs may be closed during an extended outage. If the power is still on in your neighborhood but not in your home, check your breaker. Call your utility provider to determine if the interruption is widespread or only affecting your property. Leave one light on inside and one light on outside so you and the utility workers will know when the power has been restored. Know when to go. If it's too cold or hot to stay where you are and it is safe to leave, head to a community shelter until it is safe to return. Extreme cold and heat can have a greater impact on older adults, young children, and those with health issues. If you must remain where you are, follow these tips. Head to the lowest level of the building. It will stay warm longer in the winter and cooler in the summer. Keep your doors and blinds closed. Have extra blankets and warm clothes on hand in winter. Use a wood burning or gas fireplace if you have one. Turn cell phones to battery saving mode and only use them for emergency calls. Keep freezer and refrigerator doors closed and unplug all electronics and items like computers, coffee makers, kettles, microwaves, toasters. When the power has been restored, ensure that you check all food in the fridge and freezer for sign of spoilage and damage. When in doubt, throw it out. After 24 hours of no power, all refrigerated medication should also be thrown out unless the label says otherwise. Floods are the most frequent natural disaster across Canada, as well as one of the most often overlooked. Let's talk about the things you can do to keep yourself safe from flooding, as well as protecting your home. There's a few things that make floods more likely to occur, although it's good to keep in mind that flooding can occur at any time of year. Generally, floods occur when a greater than normal amount of water appears suddenly with insufficient drainage. This could be caused by sudden flashes of rainfall, dam failures, rapidly melting snow and ice, and more. Many cities have excellent infrastructure to drain water away from roadways and other important areas. This helps to protect your home. Before a flood is forecasted, however, it is wise to question if there's anything you can do to reduce your risks. The first question you'll want to answer is where water goes around your home. Do your gutters drain directly downwards, or are they routed away from your house? Concrete and wood are porous and will only act as a barrier for small amounts of water. This means you'll want to make sure your gutters drain away from the foundation of your home. The soil around your home can make a big difference as well. Hard and dry soil with nothing in it does not readily absorb water. In contrast, loose soil with plants in it will readily suck water in. It's usually best to plant native plants as they're generally easier to grow and are already adapted to the natural soil. You can also try spreading mulch over any bare soil, as it will significantly increase the soil's absorbency. It's also wise to make sure any low-level windows are well sealed. A little bit of weather sealant can go a long way. Particularly if you have a basement, you'll want to make sure that you identify any leaks or cracks and seal them to ensure you don't give floodwaters an easy path to enter your home. Consider investing in a sump pump or other water removal device. These devices can save your home, and they won't do much if the flooding is already overwhelming your home. Be prepared to turn off any gas or electrical mains in your home. Remember, if there's water near an electrical panel, Exit your house immediately and call an electrician. If it's safe to do so, turning off these mains can minimize the potential damage to your home and its infrastructure. To prevent as much damage as possible, try the following. Put weather protectant sealant around basement windows and the base of ground level doors. Purchase flood barriers or sandbags to create dams around key areas. If you have a basement, it's best to install a sump pump. Call your electricity or fuel supplier and get their advice on how to proceed in the case of a flood. Plan a to-do list for when a flood is in the forecast, because time will be of the essence. Make sure you create your own list based on your living situation, but feel free to use these tips as a starting guideline. Turn off basement furnaces, turn off outside gas valves, protect your heating equipment, move furniture and electrical appliances to an upper floor. Remove toxic materials from the area to avoid pollution. If it's necessary to evacuate your home, make sure you only return to it once authorities have said it's safe to do so, and be prepared to grab your emergency kit if an evacuation is necessary. If you must evacuate due to flooding, follow the route specified by officials and don't take shortcuts. They could lead you to blocked or dangerous areas. Never cross a flood. If you're on foot, fast water could sweep you away. It takes only 6 inches of quick moving water to knock an able-bodied adult off their feet, and there may be sharp objects or other hazards underwater. Never drive through floodwaters or underpasses. The water might be deeper than it looks, and your car could get stuck or swept away. If your vehicle stalls, leave it. Save yourself and your passengers. Get out as soon as possible. If the waters begin to rise past the doors and windows, they will not open until the pressure inside the vehicle is the same as the outside, namely, until your vehicle is full of water. If your area does flood and you are unable to evacuate, get to a higher location, such as an upper floor or the roof. Bring your emergency kit bag with you. When leaving your home, if you have time, leave a note to inform others of when you left and where you went. Place the note in a visible spot where floodwaters are unlikely to reach it, and always prioritize your safety. If it's not safe, don't stop. And no matter where you live, it's a good idea to keep important documents in a waterproof container and your electronics off the ground. Even apartments can flood if something goes wrong. Canada had some record-breaking high temperatures last year. As we've begun seeing over the past decade, with scorching summer heat comes drought, dried out vegetation, and wildfires, and high pressure systems like the pressure domes that have caused extreme weather. Experts have warned that we should be prepared for more heat waves. Let's take a look at how we can do that before the next one comes around. If you don't have an air conditioner or at least some fans, start looking for one early. Stock your freezer with ice. A bowl of ice put behind a fan will circulate cold air throughout the room. Check the seals on your windows and doors. Bad seals are a leading cause of poor insulation, which can make your house too hot in the summer and hike up your electricity bill in the winter. Put up some heat-reflecting window film to prevent your home from becoming a greenhouse. Start applying the film once the weather starts to warm up. Ensure you have loose-fitting cotton clothing and avoid polyester or synthetic fibers. You don't want to use your oven during the hottest days, so prepare some meals that you can freeze now and easily reheat later. And if you can eat a cold meal, that's even better. Stock up on electrolyte drinks like Gatorade. Dehydration is a real threat when temperatures soar, and electrolytes will help your body regulate its balance of fluids. Stay hydrated. If you have elderly neighbors or nearby family, keep tabs on them, especially if they live alone. Make sure that you have each other's contact information just in case, and know the symptoms of heat exhaustion for people and pets. What if you're in an area with a high wildfire risk? They're not only an issue during a heat wave, so it's important to know just how dangerous they can be. A wildfire can be caused in a variety of ways, from the sun's heat to lightning strikes to human carelessness. In order to ignite a fire needs a trifecta of fuel, oxygen, and heat. When it's been dry for long periods of time, forests unfortunately make excellent fuel, and wildfires advance very quickly, up to 23 kilometers per hour when whipped up by wind. So why do they move so fast? In addition to moving directly from tree to tree or house to house, if a fire reaches a residential area, embers are pushed forward by the heat-generated winds and ignite fuel sources ahead of it. How do you prepare for a wildfire? I'll go over the basics, but for a more in-depth information on steps that you can take, visit wildfire.alberta.ca and look for the Wildfire Preparedness Guide. Have your emergency kit at the ready. And research insurance coverage. Most homeowners and tenant insurance policies will provide coverage for reasonable living expenses for a specified time. Take measures to mitigate the risks, such as removing flammable materials from the area directly surrounding your home. Think gas barbecue tanks, garden debris, and if possible, keep your lawn well watered. Know the evacuation stages and what they mean. The first one is evacuation alert. Be ready to leave on short notice. Gather your kits, emergency plan, copies of important documents and cherished mementos, have them by your front door or already packed in your vehicle, and make sure that your vehicle has fuel always in the tank. Keep it at least half full. Next are evacuation orders. You're at risk and you must leave immediately. Close your doors and windows on the way out and turn on an interior and exterior light so that your home is visible to firefighters in heavy smoke. Follow all directions from officials and evacuate using the route that they have identified. And lastly, evacuation rescind. Once officials determine the situation is safe, the evacuation order will be rescinded and you can return home. Continue to stay tuned for other possible evacuation alerts or orders. If you don't live near at-risk areas, it's still highly likely that you'll be affected in some way. As we've seen every summer, wildfire smoke lowers air quality drastically. The best way to protect yourself from wildfire smoke is to reduce your exposure. This means staying inside in a location with cool, filtered air if possible. At home, keep windows and doors closed, close fresh air intakes, and set your air conditioner to recirculate and keep it running to help filter the air. If you have HEPA filters, use them, and humidifiers can also help remove smoke from indoor air. Use common sense with physical activity. If breathing becomes difficult or uncomfortable, stop or reduce the activity. Stay cool and drink plenty of fluids. Heat waves and wildfires are more summer hazards, but they still do affect fall and winter. Ground stability after a wildfire has altered, so when there's a lot of rainfall, landslides become a potential concern and risk. Throughout most of Canada's inland and southern regions, tornadoes are an all too common occurrence. Each year, on average, approximately 43 tornadoes occur across the prairies, most of these swirling across these regions between May and September. Tornadoes can change direction very suddenly and travel up to 90 kilometers an hour, and can vary wildly in strength, speed, direction of movement, duration, and appearance, which makes them very, very difficult to forecast. When you are aware of a tornado in your area, it's important to seek shelter immediately and remain in place until the severe weather passes. If you are outdoors and exposed, get to low-lying ground, lay flat, and protect your head from flying debris. Stay safe by being informed of severe weather in your area by following local forecasters on social media, listening to the radio, and downloading alert apps onto your phone. Have an emergency plan so you're prepared to leave early and know in advance where to safely take shelter from the threat. Listen to Environment Canada's watches and warnings, especially during the summer. Tornadoes can develop quickly. If you see or hear a tornado or are warned that one is coming, take shelter as soon as possible. Underground is safest, or the lowest level of the nearest building. This is where storm cellars come in handy. Keep an eye out for flying debris and glass, which are the most dangerous part of tornado weather. Try to shield your head with your arms if you're caught outside, and find a ditch or low-lying area if you can and get as flat as possible to the ground. Close windows and doors in your home or whatever building you happen to be taking shelter in and secure them as much as possible. After the tornado is over, check yourself and everyone around you for injuries. Tornadoes can arrive and leave very quickly, but wreak a lot of havoc. So being able to think on your feet is key. Vehicles are not safe during tornadoes and extreme windstorms. If you know severe weather is approaching and do not have safe shelter, leave the area well in advance and seek shelter in a building, preferably with a solid foundation. If it's too late to leave the area by vehicle, seek shelter in a nearby solid building immediately. If there's no solid building near you, take shelter in a culvert, ditch, or low-lying area away from vehicles. Cover your head for protection and beware of flooding from downpours and be prepared to move. If the threat is visible in the distance, you may be able to avoid it by moving at right angles to its path, but it is wise to seek shelter in a solid building immediately. Never try to outrun a nearby tornado. Avoid sheltering under bridges and overpasses where the wind speeds can increase. Earthquakes can occur in Alberta both naturally and a result of human activity. Most of Alberta's recorded earthquakes are distributed evenly along the foothills and the Rocky Mountains. A 5.8 magnitude quake is one of the largest recorded in Alberta and was lightly felt in eastern British Columbia and western Alberta. It's potentially the largest earthquake the province has experienced. The number of earthquakes has increased over the years due to human activity, such as oil and gas exploration, hydraulic fracturing, and wastewater disposal. Take a moment to think about what would happen if an earthquake were to hit right this instant. What would you do? As soon as the shaking starts, you need to drop, cover, and hold. Get underneath something sturdy. A desk or a table works well. And use one hand to protect the back of your neck. With the other, get a solid grip on your hiding place. There's every chance that it will be trying to move without you, so hang on tight. Most injuries in an earthquake are likely to come from either broken glass or falling objects and furniture. Once the shaking stops completely, stay put and count to 60 as loud as you can. This lets others know where you are while making sure that you remain safe in case any immediate aftershocks occur. It also gives your surroundings a chance to settle. If there are any aftershocks, start counting again. This time when you reach 60, gather your children, pets, and your emergency kit bag and move towards the nearest exit. If you're at work, follow the instructions of your manager and remember your workplace safety procedures and drills. And if you're out and about, stay outside. Move into an open area away from buildings and electrical lines. It's now time to take stock of the damage. Check yourself for injuries, then do the same for any others around you. Don't skip checking yourself because you feel fine. You may have shock without even realizing it. If you live in a house, walk around your home and look for damage. Your house should be on its foundations and without major structural damage. If you think it may be unsafe, do not re-enter. Tune in to the local radio news using a battery or solar-powered radio if the power's out, and listen for instructions from local authorities. Follow their direction unless otherwise instructed. Stay off the roads as much as possible to leave them open for emergency vehicles. If you're able to stay home or if you're in your vehicle, put a sign in the window to let first responders know that you're okay or if you need help. This lets them move through neighborhoods quickly and will help them to move to those who need assistance sooner. Turn off your water main until you can look for cracks in your pipes. Stay alert for the scent of gas. If you smell rotten eggs, turn off your gas main. However, be aware that it's strongly recommended to have a professional turn it back on, and it might be some time before they're available. Once you and those in your immediate vicinity are safe in any emergency, and you're fairly sure that your dwelling is safe, it's time to follow the steps in your emergency plan. Firstly, depending on where you live, learn about what kind of emergencies you and your family are most at risk for, and then plan accordingly. Keep the right supplies on hand and make sure everyone in your family knows where they are. And if you move to a new home, you must review your plan according to the type of emergencies most common to your new area. Secondly, create an evacuation plan that everyone in your family knows and can practice together. It should include 2 outside meeting places, 1 right outside your home, and 1 a short distance away, such as a library or police station. In case your family gets separated, the first meeting place should be the spot nearest to the house. If the first location is unsafe, then every family member should know how to reach the second emergency meeting area. Naturally, moving to a different home means reviewing and setting new emergency points for your family. And lastly, keep all important contact information in an easily accessible place. These might include numbers for your children's school, your workplace, family members, emergency service numbers, and an out-of-town contact, a person who is unlikely to be affected by your local disaster. We recommend reviewing your plan every couple of months and update any information that is no longer relevant. Know where your utilities are and how to shut them off. Know your local emergency radio stations. Have an out-of-town contact. Keep a list of emergency numbers in your kit. If you have children, plan who will pick up which child and create a reunification plan with your children. Know the local evacuation routes around your home and have your grab and go bag with a larger store of supplies if possible. Preparing for other hazards. Answer these questions to get started in analyzing these and other potential hazards. They can form the basis of your emergency plan. What are the main dangers caused by this emergency? For example, hypothermia is a major risk during periods of extreme cold. Will the emergency make it unsafe to remain in my home and require evacuation? Or will my home be the safest place for the duration of the emergency? Will I be able to get to a store during the emergency? Or will I be stranded in my home due to unsafe conditions outside? How long is this emergency likely to last? If there's a power outage, it might last anywhere from a few hours to a few weeks, depending on your location. What other factors would make this emergency more dangerous? If the power goes out during extreme heat or cold, it would be more difficult to maintain a safe body temperature. What supplies will I need to keep myself and my household as safe as possible during this emergency? Pets are a part of our household as well. Did you know that 57% of households in Canada include pets? Pets are very important. So having a list is a great way to get started in preparing an emergency kit bag for your pet. General pet items include a leash or a harness, blanket and chew toys, ID tag and collar, and food and water for at least 72 hours. Bowls, a can opener for food, canned food, and kibble. Newspaper or paper towels, plastic bags, litter, possibly a litter box. Special medications, dosage, and your veterinarian contact information. And a pet file that would include a recent photo of your pet, your emergency numbers, contact information for friends who could take care of your pet, copies of any licenses, vaccination records, an optional item, you could have a crate as well. And be sure to include a pet first aid kit. It's very important that your pet wears a collar and identification tag always, just in case there's an emergency, and ensure that your pet takes part in any emergency drills you practice as a family. Many of you are probably wondering, so what goes into an emergency preparedness kit? All emergency kits can be packed in an easy to carry backpack, rolling suitcase, or rolling tote. Just make sure it's something that you can take with you. All kits should at a minimum contain these key items to sustain your family for a minimum of 72 hours. And we do recommend that a week's worth of supplies is preferable if at all possible. Food, whether it's freeze-dried, MREs, food ration bars, or canned dry goods. Always ensure you check the expiry dates and have a safe, reliable way to prepare food that requires cooking. Water. Have enough water for drinking, cooking, and hygiene. Water can be stored in collapsible water containers and water breaks. Be sure to have water purification tablets on hand. Alternatively, look at emergency water. Pouched water lasts 5 years and canned lasts 50 years. If you use bottled water, be sure to cycle through the water frequently. The shelf life of bottled water can be quite short. Light and communication. Light sticks or flashlights. Be sure to pack extra batteries in a Ziploc bag if you're using a battery-operated flashlight. And remember that light sticks are short-term. They only last 4 to 8 hours and are a one-time use item only. Radios. Whether you're using a battery-operated or a solar hand-cranked, make sure that you have your radio ready to go and dialed in to an emergency station. A whistle to signal if you're trapped somewhere and you want people to know where you are. Help OK signs, phone chargers, battery packs. First aid and personal protective equipment. Prepare a basic first aid kit and be sure to have your personal protective equipment as well. This can include items like goggles, gloves, and dust masks. And put together a hygiene and sanitation kit. This will not only make you feel better during a time of stress, but will also help to deter any bacteria that causes illness that may arise from poor hygiene. Include hand sanitizer, heavy-duty garbage bags, a toilet kit, a bar of soap and shampoo, and a toothbrush and toothpaste. There are many other items that you can pack into your emergency kit, and the following items should be kept in a waterproof bag or a container in or alongside your emergency kit. A paper copy of your emergency plan, inventory of your emergency kit, evacuation route maps from your home to meeting places, a copy of your reunification plan, and contact telephone numbers. A USB stick with copies of all your important documents and photos. power bank to charge your cell phone, spare clothes, a spare pair of shoes. And if you wear prescription glasses or contact lenses, pack a spare pair. And medications, at least a week's worth. You can have warm blankets, a small tent, hand and foot warmers, and a small amount of cash in case ATMs are down. We're often asked what can be added to a kit if there are infants and toddlers in the family. Keeping in mind that each child's needs differ, basics should include formula, snacks for toddlers, spare clothes and shoes, blankets, diapers, soothers, cream, and any small toys or books that calm and entertain and ensure that if your child is on a specific medication, to have at least a week's worth packed in your kit. You can ask your pharmacy to prepare a blister pack for you that you can easily store in your kit. Preparing for disasters and talking to your children about disasters. Disasters might seem like a normal part of life for adults living in high-risk areas, but what about our children? How can we prepare them for emergencies while giving them age-appropriate information? Kids are curious about the world around them, but can be highly sensitive to alarming news and information. So what exactly is the best way to prepare children about emergency preparedness without instilling in them a permanent fear of such situations? Be a role model. Whether you realize it or not, your kids will observe you closely for your reactions to difficult times and will naturally follow suit. The best way to enhance that natural tendency in kids is to show them how being compassionate, confidently handling responsibility, and looking after your family is the best thing that they can do, especially during an emergency. And teach through storytelling. In addition to your actions, teach your kids through storytelling about how people have overcome hardships or difficult situations. This can be done in a number of ways, like reading books, watching movies, and telling stories that revolve around various themes. And share responsibility. As adults, we tend to think that kids don't have the right skills to make a difference, so often they aren't given any responsibilities. But by providing your children with responsibilities appropriate for their age, you're telling them, I trust you to help us. Doing this will benefit your children in two ways. It makes them responsible, confident, and brave. And secondly, it takes their attention away from being scared or getting stressed out. Naturally, when they feel like they're looking after their family, it gives them a boost that multiplies their mental strengths. When an emergency happens, what matters most is keeping your family and your loved ones safe. Teaching your children about emergency preparedness is one way to ensure their safety. Preparation will help them face any emergency bravely and confidently. It's a gradual process that should be tweaked depending on the age of the children, but it will pay off in the long run. Now you have your kit and it's stored in an easily accessible location. Don't forget about it. It's important to check your kit at least once a year. Ensure you check all expiry dates and check to see if anything is leaking or has burst, and be sure to check your first aid and medications too. So I have a few picture slides here. It's kind of a sneak preview of the M&A kit that Kimberly was talking about earlier. And these kits do comprise the items that we talked about, the basics that you need to have in your tent, in your kit. So there is the water, the light, hygiene, food, emergency blankets, the first aid, and these are in backpacks. And there's water tablets, waterproof matches, candle, and a multi-purpose army knife, and a whole host of other things. But I just thought I'd share a couple of photos with you on what these kits will be comprised of. We'll be having a short Q&A in just a moment, but if you're not able to stay, please feel free to contact any member of the Total Prepare team at hello@totalprepare.ca. We're always happy to help and answer any questions that you may have. And I'd like to thank the Métis Nation of Alberta organizers for inviting me to speak to you this evening. It's been a great pleasure, and I thank you.
Thank you so much, Isabel. What a great presentation. I know I learned a ton. That was so informative and lots of really tangible things that people can do. I never would have thought of having a one parent or designate to pick up two different, or if you have multiple kids and in kind of an emergency situation, thinking of, who's going to pick up who if your kids go to different school or whatnot. And also about moving at a right angle from a tornado. I can't imagine trying to outrun a tornado, but that sounds like that's a good trick to know. So with that, I know there's a few questions in the chat and the Q&A. So if I have, so Kimberly, I know you're around, and Isabel, maybe I'll just read some of these questions and then I can direct to one of you, if that's okay. So there was one question in the Q&A about, will this slide presentation be available after? And we are recording this session, so this will be available online, and I'll send it to everybody who registered for this in a follow-up email. And we might be able to get the slides as well. I'll double check on that. Let me take a look at the chat. I saw a question about livestock. Any suggestions about what to do with livestock in an emergency situation? Isabel, I don't know if that's something that you might have some information on.
I don't have a lot of experience with livestock per se, but with most animals, I mean, if they're in a sheltered, warm place, such as a barn, and they're kept calm, I don't have a really specific answer for that one, but as with other pets, you want to keep them safe, you want to keep them warm, you want to keep them fed and watered, and you want to make sure that they remain calm. And a lot of times with some animals, just having a person there would also help. So someone may need to shelter in place in a barn and have their emergency kit with them just to stay with the animals.
That makes sense. I think I've also heard too, if you had to evacuate, to make sure that animals could escape if they needed to, like if they were corralled in somewhere, to, I guess, depending on the situation. And I'm not an expert in this, but I remember seeing that somewhere. A couple other questions here. Do you know where a person can buy a crank or a solar powered radio with a USB port?
I just happen to know. There are a lot of variety of different places that you could look. Obviously Total Prepare carries them, but you could also look on Amazon. I have seen them here in British Columbia at the local Costco. So there are a lot of different locations that you could look. I don't believe that you would be able to find one in a Walmart or a Canadian Tire, but I have seen them on Amazon and any emergency preparedness online store or shop. If you've got sort of a camping gear type of store in your area, they may also carry it. I know Mountain Equipment Co-op carries that sort of thing as well, but I think that's a BC store.
We have Mountain Equipment Co-op here.
There you go.
Yeah. Lots of good stuff there. Another question here. Oh, I think Court just answered it. The question was, there are a lot of natural disasters to prepare for. Does the 72-hour kit include cards or other tips for all hazard preparedness? So within the kit, is there information about, I guess, more local hazards?
Not specifically, but what I would suggest is the Alberta alert site that I had mentioned earlier at the beginning of the presentation. If you go to the website, there is a link somewhere on there where that you can order brochures and cards. Here in British Columbia, through the government, we also get these little booklets, and they're actually workbooks for preparing your emergency evacuation plan. There are also little postcard size, little tips and tricks. Don't forget to include this in your kit, et cetera, et cetera. So if you go to the Alberta Emergency Alert site, I'm sure that they also have the link there for getting some brochures and some documentation. The province website will certainly have it if you look under emergency preparedness.
Great, thank you. Lots of questions here about buying some of the things we talked about. Might be a little bit different in BC, but any ideas for buying non-carbonated water?
Non-carbonated water. Okay, as I mentioned, so you can buy bottled water, but you need to be cautious with bottled water, especially if the temperature changes rapidly. Plastic tends to leach and it can create a bacteria that will go into the water. So if you can get a water brick or those collapsible water containers that we see for people that are camping, they're clear plastic and they've got a little red twist tub on them and a handle to carry. You can pack your water in that and purchase emergency aqua tabs, the water purification tablets. And if you put a tablet in, most tablets will cover, anywhere from 1 to 30 liters of water. So you could purify your own water, or you could use other water filtration systems. There are life straws. Those are things where you just basically go, you stick the straw into your lake or your stream, creek, and you suck it like a straw and you've got some water. But emergency water, whether it's packaged in a Mylar pouch or in a can, just be sure to make sure that you check the expiry dates on it. And most water is not carbonated. Carbonated water, I can't see using that during an emergency.
Yeah, that's a good point about, I never would have thought about like having a canned water versus like a plastic water. Like I think everybody's so used to buying reuse or disposable plastic. So that's good for the environment too, to have like aluminum cans versus
It
plastic.
is. It
And they're also,
is.
there's a question here about somebody asking about a spouse or partner who has some mobility issues. And if you aren't able to evacuate in a situation, if you have any advice on what to do if you're not able to leave where you are.
So if there is an evacuation order and you're preparing to go, what I would suggest is that you call the local first responders, whether you're calling the ambulance service, police department, fire department. And the first responders are the people that are going to assist people that have disabilities, whether they're in a wheelchair, using a walker, or other disabilities. And, if someone is at home during a respite and they're hooked up to an IV drip, then calling the ambulance service, they will transfer those people to hospital to ensure that they're safe during an emergency, especially if there is an evacuation order. So it's always very important to have all the emergency numbers on hand, have that contact information readily available at all times. Doesn't even have to be an emergency.
Yeah, and what a great idea. I know I'm so reliant on saving everything in my cell phone that if that died, then I don't know how many people's numbers I remember anymore, not let alone any other, local radio stations or insurance and all that. A few more things in the Q&A here. Do we sign up with Alert Site Alberta at the onset of the emergency? Yeah, so that's on the
No,
screen.
Yeah, so if you sign up before, this is when you will receive alerts from emergencyalert.alberta.ca. So if there is a situation and you have the app on your phone, then you will receive the alerts about any potential risks or any potential emergency situations that are coming up, severe weather, etc. They do send them. I have one, the BC alert system on my phone. It's constantly going.
Yeah, we through some alert system here in Alberta, I know I got about 8 test ones the other day, so I have a suspicion that you'll get it even if you don't sign up for it. So
Yeah.
yeah, I guess if you have a cell phone though, so maybe something to keep in mind there.
Mm-hmm.
So we do have some time for some more questions. So I'm just keeping an eye on this. Any other questions for the M&A as well in terms of our launch of the emergency kits and process? I think we're hoping to have them be mailed out within the next month. But as Kimberly mentioned, it takes some time to go through all the applications and sort out all the mailing addresses and everything. Oh, another question here, or maybe a tip. I live in the bush, I use wood for heat, and if you have gas, maybe you should have a backup. Yeah, thinking about if you are staying put, like all the things you would need, and if you require or rely on any kind of power for those. Oh, there's a question here. If you wanted to purchase an M&A emergency kit, what is the cost?
That I don't know.
Yeah, that's a good question. I know, obviously we bought all of ours through Total Prepare, and I'm sure we could get the link to Total Prepare's website on here. And there are, obviously Total Prepare has been a really great partner on this. I know there are some other companies that provide these kinds of kits as well. And depending, the kits we got from Total Prepare were for 6 people for 3 days. So we wanted to see, get the most we could. And then obviously that would just last, 2 people quite a bit longer. But yeah, we aren't selling them. We just got those 500 and are going to distribute them. And hopefully, fingers crossed, we'll be able to do that again in the future. I don't have any plans for that right now. Yeah, a couple of questions here, list of items. I'm going to do a follow-up email to everybody who attended or registered for this session, and I can include a list of items. I know we've been getting a few inquiries like that, so I can send that out. And then if people want to start kind of getting those together, that would be great. All right, trying to scroll through all these questions. Great to see so many people participating in the chat and the Q&A. We have a little bit more time, and I'll just ask if anybody has questions to put them in the Q&A, not the chat. Don't want to miss anything. Lots of thank yous. Thank you everybody for attending. I know in Edmonton, we don't think of, we think I'm in Edmonton, and in Alberta, we feel, I think, kind of safe from these types of events. Like we don't have tsunamis or hurricanes or, volcanoes and stuff like that, but there are lots of things to consider. And, thinking about it is really the first step, I think. So. One more question about water here. How long will bottled water last for? I'm assuming it depends on the type of plastic.
Yeah, it also depends on, the manufacturing companies. I've seen some water with expiry dates that are like 24 months out. Others I've seen less, like about a year, but that also depends on how it's been stocked in the store. So if you're going to like a Canadian superstore and you're buying a flat of water, those flats of water, the turnaround on those is so fast that the expiry date on those is a lot shorter than something else that you might buy elsewhere. So yeah, on average, I would say anywhere from 1 to maybe tops 3 years. But again, make sure that you're always checking the water. As I said, significant changes in temperature can really affect the plastics of those bottles, and they do tend to have a certain type of bacteria that will grow. So if it's been stored somewhere cool and all of a sudden it's in your garage and it gets really, really hot, that plastic's going to start to do some really funky stuff.
Yeah, and a few people asked about the canned water again. I don't know. I know I've seen Earth Water. If anybody's seen that brand, that they have canned water. I'm not sure about other ones though, but that's a good thing to keep an eye out for.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, thank you about including animals and pets in the webinar.
You're
Of
welcome.
course. Um, yeah, any other questions at the moment? Otherwise, maybe we'll wrap up a few minutes early.
No one's really asked the question, but just as sort of a side note, I know that I mentioned having an emergency kit in your vehicle as well. So the types of things that you can put into a vehicle kit, obviously the same things as you would put into your own emergency kit that you're going to be storing in your home. So you can have the basics, you're going to have the food and the water, and I would have a flashlight for sure. Hand warmers, foot warmers, especially if it's going to be cold and you don't want to run your vehicle for heat because you want to, save the battery of your car and the gas and everything else. Also, if you can, make sure that you've got maybe an emergency triangle, because if you happen to be stuck somewhere and it's a magnetic triangle that you can stick on the roof of your car, passersby are going to be able to see that, and also have one of those help okay signs. I have one in my car, and if I get stuck somewhere, I stick a help sign in the rear window, and people will help. So, but have some general basic things. I always have, like, I've got, like a nice wool blanket and a pillow in my car in case I get stuck. I'm always driving the Coca-Cola, so I've got a kit in my car as well.
Yeah, that's a good reminder too, that it's great to have a kit, but if it's at home and you get stuck somewhere driving, then it's not going to do you much good from home. So
Yeah, and throw in a garbage bag and a roll of toilet paper. Hygiene's important. Bottle of hand sanitizer.
for sure. I know
Hmm.
I think I have 5 half-empty bottles of hand sanitizer in my car now after our last couple of years. But one more question in the chat. Are there fire blankets included in this kit?
Fire blankets. Let me have a look and see if there are fire blankets included in this kit. So each backpack contains the food, the water, ponchos, sleeping bags, first aid kit, hand and foot warmers, light sticks, army knife, whistle, aqua tubs, patient bath packs, dust vest. No, fire blankets are not included.
That's a good question.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, so I guess, and I think as you mentioned earlier, Isabella, kind of taking the time to think about what kind of emergency situations or natural hazards could affect you in your area, and maybe um, curating a kit for your specific needs.
Yeah, there's a lot of things to think about, and in terms of emergency fire blankets, I mean, they are fantastic and they do come in different types. I have heard things about the fiberglass blankets actually leaving fiberglass fibers if you're not wearing gloves. You could get fiberglass in your hands, and that would hurt. And they're a little bit heavier, but there are other options out there. There are wool fire retardant blankets, and there's also smaller cotton fire retardant blankets that are actually mainly used by first responders for children and babies.
Yeah, somebody also asked if you sell fire blankets.
They're not on the website, but yes, we do.
Another note in the chat here, speaking of water before, that there's water in glass bottles that are safe to store. Yeah, great to think about what you need and kind of the longevity and practicality of those things too.
And the weight of those things as well, because you're going to have to remember, if you need to evacuate, you have to carry it with you if you're on foot. If you're loading your car, great. But, you know, think about transport and how safe it is. So if you've got glass, the potential of breakage, having shattered glass anywhere, you know, Mylar pouches, plastic bottles, which I don't recommend, canned water, they're great. But also think about what you're going to be putting in either a rolling suitcase or a backpack or a tote or something that you're going to have to carry it at some stage.
Yeah, and it is a really good reminder that, you know, these kits, the 72-hour kit for 66 people that we got, it's 2 backpacks, right? So, and they're both, you know, jam-packed with stuff. So they are they're not light. So to keep in mind that, you know, if you are there easily accessible, you have people that you know, can move them. Yeah. Lots to think about, hey?
A lot to think about. There is a lot to think about.
Awesome. Sorry, just so yeah, aqua tabs are light. Sort of those life straws.
Yeah, life straws that they also have 1 liter and 3 liter size, the life straw as well. So you could put some water in that. There is, you know, a few different options that are available.
Awesome. I think we have got all the questions. Apologies if we missed any. Great to see everybody so active in the chat. But maybe with that, we'll just wrap up a few minutes early here, give everybody a couple of minutes back of their evening. And just thank you again to Isabel from Total Prepare and Court for answering all the questions. Really great to have you guys to share all that information. I know I learned a lot, and I'm sure everybody else attending did too. And we'll keep working away at trying to get back to people who applied for kits and get those out to you. So thanks again. And just a reminder, when you leave this session, a pop-up will come up about entering the contest to win one of the 5 kits. So that, make sure you enter that. We wanted to, give preference to those people who attended and listened tonight. So make sure you don't miss that. Sorry, I think I just saw a chat quickly of how do you apply. Unfortunately, the application is closed now for the round we did. It was open all through February. And as Kimberly said earlier, we had like over 1,600 people apply. So we know the needs there, and working around that. So thanks again to everybody, and I'll leave it at that. Have a great night.
Thanks, everybody.